my grandpa Pearl Harbor.
I do.
And, I'd always heard about this tape. My mom had said, I wanted to record your grandpa before he died and get his stories. My grandpa was one of these, like, those people that are like, well, it was May 3rd, 1942 when I was aboard the blah, blah, blah. It was a Tuesday. It was Sunday. And you're like, how the fuck do you remember all this detail? He's one of those guys. Like, if you sat down and watched Jeopardy with him, he knew everything. It was weird. And so he was at Pearl Harbor. And so my mom sat down with him, my mom and dad actually, at his home. He was 87 years old when this was recorded. And my mom just so happened yesterday, she's like, hey, tomorrow's Pearl Harbor Remembrance Day. And I located the tape of us talking to Grandpa about what he saw and what it was like, blah, blah, blah. And do you want it? And I was like, yeah, hell yeah, I'll take it. So she dropped it off, and I spent the next 10 hours going through it and finding a few snippets that I think were worthy of airplay. Cool. And it's remarkable to hear, like, I don't know, the detail. A lot of it you'll recognize from what just E just said, but he was there top deck of, when the bombers came in. And so, yeah, this is my grandfather, my mom. You'll hear my mom chime in time to time asking questions.
Is she a hell of an interviewer? Or?
She's wonderful. Yeah. Tremendous interviewer, yeah. E, you want to play the first one there? I believe this is when he gets to Hawaii.
And when I got to Hawaii, I was assigned to the Commander Destroyer Squadron 3 staff, which was aboard the USS Clark.
Okay. I
was on the Clark from that point, which was early spring, until just prior to the start of World War II, of the attack on Pearl Harbor. And at that time, the ships in the squadron, there were 8 other destroyers that went to the Navy Yard in Pearl Harbor because we were having our mast changed from a tripod to a stick mast. And that's why we were in the Navy Yard. But then, on December 7th, while we were there, the attack took place. And we were all in the radio shack. We were disgusted because this JG had gotten us up early on a Sunday morning. But we were in the radio shack with nothing to do except drink coffee and read the Sunday paper.
I'd be playing with
and we heard the
control
commotion
cars.
outside.
That's all Radio Shack is
and
good for.
Didn't pay too much attention to it because the Army used to practice bombing us in Pearl
That was a really
Harbor.
important part we
But
talked
one of
over.
the fellows walked out outside the Radio Shack, and he called in, they've got meatballs on their wings. And that's when we all rushed out to see what was going on. And you could even see the pilots in their plane as they came across the destroyers. They were headed for Battleship Row, and they came across strafing with machine guns on us. But they just wanted to get beyond us and drop the torpedoes into the battleships.
So what was the scene of what you could see? Were you up on deck at all?
Oh, yeah.
We
were above. Yeah, we were topside.
Okay. So you could see it all going on.
We could see out what was going on. And, it was just complete destruction. I mean, with the battleships all on fire and oil all spread across the harbor and people rescuers out there trying to get the people out who were in the oil and the burning that was going on. And then we finally got underway. And on the way out, there was one battleship that had cleared the Battleship Row, and that was the USS Nevada. And it was in the channel to get out, but had been hit by Japanese bombers, so their captain grounded their ship to keep the channel open, and we were able to get out into the open sea.
Wow. Yeah, he was talking at one point there when Jay and I started talking about them being in the radio shack, as he put it, and we heard all the commotion going on, the attack happening, but we were just like, yeah, whatever, because they were so used to the Army running these drills, where they would fake bomb them, so they'd be on the alert. And then he says someone came running in and said there's meatballs on the end of their wings, meaning live bombs and whatever.
Did you know that's what it meant? Meatballs.
I could
surmise that.
Yes.
Yeah, figured that out. Good. For
yes,
you.
I can. Right. Hey, I was gonna real quick. I'm actually only pulling this. This is one other fact I was gonna throw in there, and only because your dad being a survivor or your grandpa being a survivor. Of the 60,000 survivors of the Pearl Harbor thing, as of last year, there's about 2,000 to 2,500 left. And obviously, I don't know this year's but still, as of last year, about 2,000 to 2,500 were left of the 60,000 that survived.
Yeah. Yep. All right, E, what's you got the second one there, and I think this is a short clip, but he's talking about being able to see the faces of the pilots, the Japanese pilots, as they came in for the attack. Go ahead, E.
You know, I've read too where when people saw them coming over, the Japanese flying over, that they could actually see their faces in there.
You could, yeah.
Could you see their faces?
Yes, you definitely could.
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah. One guy said he saw them laughing.
Yeah, that's true. Or they'd give you a thumbs up.
Yeah.
And
Wow.
they just come over and then they drop down and throw their torpedoes.
That wasn't a thumb.
Wow.
They weren't interested in us.
Yeah.
They wanted the aircraft carriers, but all the carriers were at sea. So then they got Battleship Row.
That was a real miscalculation on their part, wasn't it? I mean,
Why
didn't they, if they knew all this stuff?
Because the
how
ships
did they
were
miss
normally
it?
in port on the weekend.
So what was different that
I
weekend?
don't know what it was that the carriers were at sea, but they were.
He's kind of getting frustrated.
Shut up. No, Pat.
I don't know, Pat. Whatever. They weren't
Great
there.
follow-up by Pat, though, you know?
Yeah, it was a good follow-up, but
It's like, well,
A sultry voice, by the way, if I might add.
oh my gosh, Pat
Jesus
is
Christ,
very, very sultry.
Christ's sakes. It's weird hearing my grandpa, who died years ago.
Sure.
Hearing him. Do you have any audio of Nana?
Great move by Pat, though.
Yeah, it's cool to hear. I mean, I don't know if it's my family, so I'm going to find it interesting. I hope other people do. But
I'm sure I have some family videos somewhere. Although I did say that to Jay that my mom or my dad had sat down with Nana's husband at one point and talked about his life, and he was in World War II as well.
Yeah.
And so I don't know where that. I can ask my dad, but I don't know where that audio is. It's one of those weird things. Now we'll all just have audio. Like of your kids will have so much of you, Jay. They don't even they won't even give a shit. It'll just be like, yeah, here's
they
thousands
won't be able
of
to
hours.
play any of it for their kids, but
Right, but it will be out there in some format.
Yeah. What's the next one? There's a couple of these Jay I left in here. You could just tell the emotion. He gets a little choked up, and I don't know. It's
sorry.
after all these years. I don't know how many it's been. 76 years. So this is probably 70 years at the time. That this whatever. But
okay, so this one says Butch O'Hara.
Yeah, go ahead and play that one. That's pretty cool.
The attack started about 5 till 8, and we got out of there shortly after 10 o'clock. Mm-hmm. And we were at sea for about 5 days. And when we returned to the harbor, they were still had boats and guys with boat hooks getting bodies out of the water.
Wow.
And they sent us over to IEA landing with a couple of cans of beer as kind of a R&R. And they had just boxes stacked up on the wharf of bodies that they hadn't yet got to the cemeteries. So then we were back and forth around Pearl for a while after that, and then we were sent to the Coral Sea then, and I think, as I've told you before, about Butch O'Hare, who was a pilot of the Lexington and part of their fighter group, and for some reason, I don't know what their mission was, but the fighter planes took off to go someplace, and Butch O'Hare's plane had some kind of difficulty. I don't know what that was either, but so he left the squadron to return to the ship. And while he was coming back, he ran into a squadron of about 20 Japanese bombers, which were coming after the Lexington group. And so he attacked them and shot down 6 of them. Wow. And then they turned and left, and he came back to the carrier and was an instant ace, because it only takes 5 to be an ace, and he got 6. Then he... later on, was shot down himself.
Yeah, crazy story.
Would you say 9? It was actually 9.
I think it was actually 9. Yeah, I looked him up. Because he talks more about that at one point in the tape. I didn't want to pull it all. There's an hour of stuff, but he's talking about the ship that he was on was the one that they used to feed. Like it would come and feed them, would give food to them, and then he goes into Butch O'Hare. And so I looked up Butch O'Hare, and it turns out Butch O'Hare is a total war hero, and he's what Chicago's O'Hare Airport is named after. Is Butch O'Hare, and he's the son of a lawyer who worked for Al Capone. He testified against Al Capone and was murdered by Capone's men. And then Butch went off and fought, and had this run that my grandfather's talking about. He's brought home then as a hero. He's a war hero. And so get your war bonds. And so they bring him and they start touring him around the country. It's like, there's Butch O'Hare. Settle down, ladies. He's spoken for with a daughter. And so they're touring him around trying to get him to, sell war bonds. And finally, Butch was like, hey, look, man, my friends are all over there still fighting, and this is kind of bullshit. So I need to go back there. And so he was sent back there, and he went up in the air, and they don't really know if it was friendly fire. It could have been like Pat Tillman, friendly fire, or they think most likely a Japanese fighter got a really lucky shot and was able to clip him and then
took him down to Chinatown.
Yeah, and his plane went down in the ocean. I don't think it's ever been found. His plane's never been found. His plane hit the ocean in the darkness. To this day, the aircraft of Edward Butch O'Hara has never been found. And then they go on to talk about this.
Chilling with Amelia Earhart somewhere.
Yeah. So it's just weird to look this up and be like, holy shit, the guy Grandpa's talking about actually did exist.
However, according to Wikipedia, he did attack a formation of 9 heavy bombers approaching his aircraft carrier.
Yeah. You know what? Grandpa's 87.
If Grandpa could have got to the Wikipedia page, he could have altered it.
It's one of those, I caught a fish. It was this big. I just chalk it up to that kind of thing.
What I get out of this, and I know this isn't a shock, but holy hell, when they do the thing about like the greatest generation, Jesus Christ, were these guys actual men compared to, I mean, the idea of going back and he's just talking about bodies just being in the waters. Dude, if I see an accident on 696, I'm like, oh, Jesus.
Dry heaving.
Oh, Lord. Why do I have to see this? This isn't fair.
Right.
And it's just not fair.
This dude talking about like dude, can you imagine this culture in these days? If they started parading somebody around, he's getting autographs, getting some tail out of it and shit. You think he's gonna be like, God, I really need to
go back to my buddies. This is bullshit.
No.
All right, play the next one because I've got a couple more that I want to get to, and we're going long.
Let me tell you one thing real fast. Just somebody watching live on YouTube pointed out to me that meatballs were not. It didn't mean they were live ammo. Meatballs are the wings. Referring to the wings of the Japanese, like the flag, meaning
there you go. That makes sense.
Oh, okay.
So it.
Okay. That does make sense.
The big red dot.
See,
I
thought what he was saying was because of the training stuff, they wouldn't have live bombs or whatever, and now we see meatballs. Okay, that does make sense. So he's saying he saw the Japanese flag.
Yeah. Okay.
Very good.
Which one did you want to play off this?
Next one. What is it?
There's Kill Yellow Bastards.
Sure. Yeah.
Then got orders to report to Commander Destroyer Squadron 21, which was aboard the USS Nicholas. And that was in the Solomon Islands. And that was in August of 1942. And we were stationed at Tulagi Harbor, which was right across from Guadalcanal. Mm-hmm. And of interest to some of you is the fact that there was this big billboard as you entered Tulagi Harbor, which is just like a billboard on the highway. Mm-hmm. And it said, we weren't politically correct then, of course. It said, kill Japs, kill the yellow bastards, Bull Halsey. And Halsey was the admiral in charge of that area.
Your mom nervously laughs.
Yeah, not politically correct. Great.
You're right,
Go ahead,
Dad,
Grandpa. It's your story. What's the next one say, E? I don't know if we should...
Helena.
I can remember you
I didn't
telling.
mean to hit that. And then won't discuss. And then his kind of
play won't discuss. These are the kinds of things when it's like you hear of guys they don't want to talk about stuff or they won't talk about stuff. This is one of those live action moments where that happens. Go ahead and play that. Just a short clip.
I can remember you telling about going down the slot and engaging the Japanese, and at times they would have their guys floating in the water.
Yes.
Tell about that.
That's not too good to tell.
You know what? It's not politically correct either, maybe.
I know, but whenever anybody heard this, why put us in a bad light?
Okay, I hear you.
She tried to push him on it.
Yeah.
She didn't. I will give her credit. A few times she's definitely answered that asked that second question.
Digging for war crimes.
Yeah.
And he smartly didn't go there.
Yeah, it's funny. I just immediately I'm like, what the fuck did they do to those bodies that were floating in the water there? who knows? But yeah, it's interesting because there's a couple times where Grandpa's like, yeah, shut off the recorder. And Mom's like, okay. And he shuts off the recorder and he's like, I'll tell you these stories, and I don't care if you tell the kids and whoever, but I don't want my voice telling these stories and putting American service members in a bad light with my voice. And I'll relay one of them was the story I've told you about turning the boat around and kind of kicking up a wake and sending some people out to sea. The other one was that he was on a destroyer or a ship and with a bunch of Marines. There were like 12 Marines and his unit, and the Marines had captured a Japanese commander, and so the Marines tie a rope around this guy's neck, and then the other it's 10 feet long or whatever, and the other end of the rope is just laying there, and so this Marine goes up to him, and he says, "Here's the end of your rope, son, sir." We're going to give this to one of the Marines. If there's ever a moment when a Marine is not holding the other end of this rope, you'll be shot in the face. And so he's like, yes, sir. And so there's a ring around this guy. There's like 12 Marines in a circle around this guy, and he's in the middle, and he's got this around his neck, and he's holding the other end of his rope. He's like, yes, sir. Hello, Mr. Marine. Would you please hold the end of my rope, please? And Grandpa says the Marine turned his back on him. And so he's like, Marine number 2, would you please hold the end of my rope? Turns his back on him. Oh. This went on for 12 Marines who all turned their back on him, and he was shot in the face. Yeah. Well, it was a
tough time.
Tough time.
War.
Tough time.
It was an ugly thing.
It was, and so anyway, things like that he didn't want his voice out there. I don't blame him. I do have. What are the other two? E, you've got Helena. The reason I want to play this because it shows the emotion. I won't play it. I won't.
Pride
yeah, hold on, E.
Oh yeah.
The Helena one, when that ship went down was taken down, they were right behind it, and they got word, and you hear the emotion all these years later, and he gets choked up, and he almost starts to cry as he's thinking about that signal coming over there. I think it was ship 50 has gone down. And then he stops himself, and then he's like, that was the Helena, and it was like all these years later, it still hits him. And then the other one that chokes me up to listen to, and might choke some other people up, is my mom starts asking about the pride he has in his country, and you can see just how much this country means to him. So go ahead and play that one, E.
You have such a pride in your country.
Yes, I do.
It makes me cry. more than a lot of people do.
Well,
it means a lot to you.
Yes.
You see the American flag, and it means a lot to you.
Yes, and when I see these demonstrations against it, I am not very tolerant.
You've always had such a respect for your country and what it's done, and you served it well, Dad. You did a great job.
Thank you.
Another observation I have about you is you haven't let the war destroy you. You experienced a lot of bad things, and you see other survivors that are interviewed. I've seen other people, and it's like it just tore them up. That hasn't been your way. So why are you different?
I don't know, except I do know that there's no way I'd buy a Japanese car.
Yeah, right.
I don't know. I mean, we'd had a real hate for them during the war, but things turned around. I mean, the many generations, times have changed so dramatically that you don't think about it too much, except you remember what they did, and that's why I can't accept that we have to buy this Japanese, buy that Japanese, instead of being an American. Why don't you buy an American car? Those are the things that disturb me.
Right.
And, I don't know. I just kind of forgot about them. But at that time, we had a distinct hate. And called a spade then. We didn't have to be nice about it.
Crazy.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. Good job, Pat.
Yeah, I thought so too, man. I thought that was cool.
Pat's got a future. We need a woman. We need a hole. Pat, come on aboard.
No, we're not. I told you, we're not bringing any women, especially with
that'd be a big problem, dude. If Pat came in here, I might have to resign because
Christ,
she'd immediately push you to the side. She'd be like, "Let me bing that."
No, I'm more talking
capable.
about the sexual tension that would obviously be in the room.
Oh, shut up, E, before I punch you. Christ's sakes, we're sitting here talking about my late grandfather. Bless him.
Remind me when that was recorded. A few years ago.
That was recorded when he was 87 years old in 2009.
He would maybe rolling over in his urn or his grave to see what's going on today with the objections to the flags and so forth.
It's funny you say that. My dad I was talking to my dad a couple weeks ago, and he said we were talking about the protests in the NFL. And he said,
he was a huge Niners guy,
dude,
right?
My grandpa had season tickets for decades to Candlestick Park. And so my dad said, I'm just glad your grandfather is dead, because that would have
torn him
apart.
It
would have crushed him like you can't imagine, to see his sport, his beloved 49er team, taking a knee during the anthem. It would have killed him. And so he's like, I'm actually glad he's not here to witness this, that he was able to move on before this bullshit started, because he wouldn't have been able to take that. But yeah, I don't know, man. I hear stuff like that, and it really, it gave me anyways a new respect for what these guys went through,
Sure.
Why there's so much pride in their country, and why, when we, we'll probably do stories today, Jay, where it's like we're bickering about something Kim Kardashian said or did, and it's like, it just doesn't matter, and we're becoming a nation of pussies. We are a nation of pussies.
Nothing like a war and real conflict to bring you in line.
Yeah, we've said that before, but it's
what this
probably
country
true.
needs.
We've been
A goddamn war.
We've been out of war that really consumed the whole country for many, many decades, and so whatever.
Well, good stuff.
Which in a way
Pat.
is a really good thing. That's the funny. That ironically, I suppose.
Yeah,
But
but it leads to, oh my God, I'll stand for Mexico's national anthem, but fuck you, America.
Right, you're
and it's
right.
like, people actually think this is a shit country. It's hilarious. It's awful.